Hey guys, long time no see. Whoops.
Thanks.
So we're out here today to photograph sunset, and we've come to New Paltz. Oh, my head is cut off. Hang on. Yeah, that's better. Whoa! Tripod! So we've come out here to the Wallkill River Rail Trail to photograph sunset, and we're gonna walk a while on this trail. It's a really nice trail. So I've come out here to the Plattekill Creek, Mohawk Mountains over there, to photograph this scene in infrared. Yeah, you heard me right. I have a filter for the front of my lens, this little Fuji camera. Which little Fuji camera? Oh, the one in my bag. Has a reasonable sensitivity to infrared light, so the infrared filter will block out everything other than infrared. Now, this is going to require me to put this thing on a tripod and give it some reasonable exposure. I'm going to zoom in a little bit to see what I can get out of it. This should be interesting. Nailed it! And we've walked down the rail trail by about maybe half to 3/4 of a mile to come to the clearing at Dressel Farms. So here are the settings for this particular shot and the composition. Again, this is all going to be converted into black and white. What does it look like in black and white? So this is what the shot looks like in black and white as shown on this particular screen. So after getting a few shots down by that little barn there, took a few more shots up on the trail and then came back here for the sunset. Now it's going to be pretty tricky because dynamic range is an issue. Now fortunately the Fuji X-T2 has absolutely phenomenal dynamic range thanks to ISO invariance. So even though right now we got some really dark darks and some really bright brights, we're going to make the best of it without having to resort to using HDR. I actually haven't had to use HDR since getting this camera, with one exception. When I photographed the eclipse out in Oregon, I did a 7 exposure, well actually it was a 9 exposure, of which I kept 7 of the exposures in order to really get the full range of the corona in the shot. But other than that, I haven't needed to use HDR to pop dynamic range out. Not much color yet. We're probably still about 15 minutes away from sunset, and then probably another 10 minutes after that until we get some real color in the sky. And so we'll see what Mother Nature throws at us. I'd actually much rather be down there. I would love to set myself up right down there, but this is private property, and so that's not going to happen. There were some cows out here earlier, and there's a whole bunch of geese right down in that. Where is it? Oh yeah, they're right down over there right now. Geese probably dropping their goose poops, as geese are wont to do. All right. Oh yeah, looks potentially fantastic. Oh, let's take a look at the composition. Now you see how black that foreground is. Now that's all going to come out just fine in the wash. Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, so this is kind of what I was hoping for. We have some altocumulus way up high, and the sun is illuminating it. Still hoping for a little bit more color, but sunset was just sort of right the heck now. Yeah. Look at how everything in the middle of the histogram is missing. That's going to change once I get it into the computer. Yeah. Now that was a nice evening out. You gotta grab the opportunities when you can, even though both sunsetwx.com and Skyfire on the Photographer's Ephemeris app both said that tonight's sunset was going to be non-existent. It was basically showing that it was going to be garbage. But take a look at the sky, take a look at the conditions at hand, and make a judgment for yourself. And you know what? If you've got the time, really, what does it hurt to get out, find that favorite location to go shoot your sunset at, and just take a chance? And even if you don't get the sunset, you still might be able to get some pretty awesome stuff. By the way, that filter, that infrared filter, oh, I can't wait to take a look and see what those photos look like. But it's coming on 9 o'clock. It's going to take me about half an hour to get home, and I am definitely an early to bed, early to rise kind of person, so I will edit these puppies tomorrow. Well, it's time to edit what I took yesterday. You ready? Let's have a look at it. Okay. I'm with Cat right now. And Cat demands affection, and Cat demands attention. So, I'm just going to sit back and snuggle Cat and show you what I'm doing here. So this is the photo that was taken by the barn. I was approached by a lady in a car who was on her way home, and she informed me that I was actually on private property here. So I asked her if it was okay for me to take the shot. She said, just don't go into the orchard. So I took the shot and I got out of there. So let's see what we've got here. This is taken with the infrared, and we can see we don't just have red here. We apparently have colors in all the rest of the spectrum as well, and I'm not going to worry so much about that. I am just going to increase this. I'm going to increase the shadows. In fact, I'm just going to bulk grab that and slide it over. Although not too much. I'm going to bring the blacks back down just a hair to bring a little contrast back into this shot. And let's see what happens when I bring the saturation of the blue all the way down. See, changing the blue channel doesn't do a darn thing. That's interesting. Alright, so I'll just leave that right where it is. And notice if I do the same to the luminance, I'm going to make the blue, because look, wow, look at the blues all the way down here. Let's make the blue. Yeah, it makes no difference whatsoever adjusting that blue slider. It's all red all the time because this filter blocks out everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to boost contrast, because contrast is you lose quite a bit of it in infrared because everything is all coming through under a very limited range of wavelengths. Let's bring those blacks back up just a hair. Let's increase the clarity, increase the micro contrast in there. I actually kind of like that in red. I like the look of it. And vibrance, well, vibrance isn't gonna, well, let's see. Vibrance? Hey, it's redder. Now it's less red. But I actually like that. Ooh, I like that a lot. See, I could also desaturate it and turn it into straight black and white. But I might want to keep a little tone in there. Just a little tone. And then bring this up a bit. Like that. See, you can actually grab this histogram and move it wholesale. Alright, I'm liking that. Alright, let's see. Anything else we can do here? Let's bring the highlights down a hair. Get some more detail in those skies. And then bring the exposure up overall. Yeah, I like that. I think that's going to work very, very nicely. Okay, so that's my adjustment within Lightroom. And you'll notice that I'm keeping a very light tinge of the rose color in here. If I do a straight up black and white conversion, that's black and white. That's not bad. But I kind of like that look. It's different. It's got a nice tone to it. Okay. So I can always convert this back to black and white later. So I'm going to keep this toned the way it is right now. And I'm going to edit it in Color Efex Pro. Now, one of the things I really like about Color Efex Pro, my little girl just jumped off my lap, is that you can create pretty much from any of their presets whatever you want. I have this is Detail Extractor, and I have it set for the way I want it. But I also have a mix of my own, a recipe, and there's my Dramatic Skies preset, which includes a filter called Skylight Filter. But that doesn't really do anything for us here. It will enhance the reds and the oranges in a sunrise shot to some degree. But I'm going to apply my secret sauce. There we go. That's the secret sauce. Now, what the secret sauce consists of is Detail Extractor. This is off. This is on. Glamour Glow. This is off, this is on. It gives it sort of a Gaussian blur. And actually, in this particular instance, I think I'm going to bring that down because it doesn't actually help the shot all that much. All the way? Maybe just a hair. Okay. And then Pro Contrast, which I have set for Dynamic Contrast. Now, this is at 60%. Let's bring Dynamic Contrast down. It doesn't have that dramatic an effect on a shot like this. I'm going to bring it back to 60%. That's where I usually keep it. Correct color cast. And again, here I can, if it's the correct color cast, I can turn it completely black and white. Or I can retain just a hair of the shade. Or I can leave it the way it was when I imported it. Now, looking at it now, I'm not so keen on that. So let's correct color cast that to bring the tonal values down to about there. That, I think, will work just fine. Okay, now I also want to bring these areas down a little, so I select a negative control point. And then I can adjust the size of that control point just to bring the brightness of that area down. I can also change the opacity. And I need to do another one with this bright little patch here. Make it smaller. And there we go. That is the image that I want. Okay, so now I'm going to save that. And that's going to bring it back into Lightroom. Come on, Lightroom. Hi. Okay, and the last touch I always throw on my photos. Okay, so this is the difference here. I'll show you. This is what it was before Color Efex, and this is after Color Efex. You can see it really punches it up quite a bit, brings all that detail and contrast out that was lost. Now, I shot this at ISO 1600, and there is some noise having brought the detail out. If I zoom right on in, there is noise here. However, one of the things I love about the Fuji X-Trans sensor is that the noise actually doesn't detract from the image. On my old Canon 5D Mark III, I would get horrifying chroma noise. Just reds and greens and blue scattered dots all over the image in the dark areas. And I get none of that with the Fuji, which is one of the reasons I dumped the 5D Mark III and made the move over to the X-T2. So that's got a lovely rose tint to it. And so I'm going to send this in to my final process, which is Topaz Impression. Now, my photos have a mild painterly look to them, and that's deliberate. And I do that in Topaz Impression. And again, I have some presets within Impression, and I tend to favor one over most of them. The disadvantage is loading the previews can take a very, very long time. It's extremely resource intensive. And even though I've got a really fast Core i7 processor in here, and I got 32 gigs of RAM in here, it still drags. And boy, I'll tell you, it drags on my MacBook something fierce. So Watercolor Effect Darker is the one that I tend to use. And that's what it looks like with the full filter applied. And what the various features are: stroke. So there are various kinds of brush strokes that you can apply, various shapes and narrowness of brush strokes, and the number of strokes as well. So you can have like lots and lots of big strokes, or a small number of big strokes, or a lot of strokes all over the place to give it texture. I have it set on medium. The brush size you can adjust, how much paint is being applied for each stroke, the opacity of the paint, overlaying the paint underneath it, rotating the stroke, varying where the stroke rotation is and what color variation. I have a little bit of smudge in here. It's just a little bit of a painterly look to it. It's based on the watercolor effect that they have as a preset. But I don't apply it full bore. I apply it typically at 34% opacity. And that way I retain most of the detail of the original image. So here's the original. You can see you've got a lot of detail in it. And then the processed image, there's a slight amount of detail lost, but it gives it a very pleasing effect. So I'm going to save this. It also brings a little bit more contrast into it too. I have some contrast settings. Now, when I bring it back into Lightroom, it takes some time for Lightroom to process this. And sometimes it will even cause Lightroom to crash, and I'll have to reboot the whole computer. Fortunately, this happens only about one time in every 100. So, and in that case, I probably needed to reboot the machine anyway. All right. Look at this histogram now. Look at that nice, beautiful curve. Oh, that's lovely. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sharpen this. I'm going to bring up the amount just a little bit on the sharpening, dropping the radius all the way, bringing the detail all the way up. Apply some masking to it to select only those areas I want to sharpen and excluding any areas that have noise. So you can see here, wow, look at all that, whoops, all that noise that shows up in the sky. All right, but if I boost that masking up, all of a sudden, look at that, no noise in the sky. So I can sharpen that, apply a little bit of sharpening, and that brings back a little bit of the detail that was lost applying the painterly filter. Now the last thing I always do to my image is I give it a very light vignette. Very, very light. Just to keep the eye in the shot. Now at this point, let's see what it would look like if I did a black and white conversion. Okay, that's nice. Is it as impactful? Let's see. I like it with the light tint, but you know what? I think I might want to drop that tint down even more. So let's bring the saturation down a bit more. There. Now I could also use the white balance, pick a white point. Let's say I want this grass area here to be white. So I select the pixel right there. And then by adjusting the white balance, look what that's done to the histogram. Everything is almost exactly in line with everything else. It's not quite the same as if I applied a straight up black and white filter. But by using the eyedropper, I can select my white point. And that actually looks pretty good also. Is it as good as without a tint? Well, let's undo that. Okay, so let's bring the saturation down a little more. I just want to retain a hint of that rose color, just as a toning. And let's see, can I adjust that tint? Ooh, look at the tint change. Oh, yeah. Towards the green end. Huh. I kind of like the look of that. This was the original. Bringing it more towards green. Huh. Outstanding. I do believe I have my final shot. I'm just going to give a slight boost to shadows. And what that's going to do is bring out a little more detail over here in the barn. Maybe just bring it back down a hair. And that's it. The final processed image. Whew! Looks good. All right, let's export this puppy. We're going to export this as infrared apple barn. And export that baby out. And there's my final image. Now I'm going to put this thing on Facebook where it will be seen and ogled for about as long as it took me to edit it and then just as quickly forgotten. Gotta love social media. Alright, let's see. What about this shot? Wow, look at the histogram. Bottomed out, topped out. Wow, a lot of dynamic range in this shot. Whatsoever shall we do? Well, let's bring the highlights down and bring out some of that detail in the sky. Some of that redness. Let's bring the blacks up. Let's bring the shadows up. Ah, there we go. That's a little bit more balanced. Still not liking how that sky is blown out. Let's adjust it slightly. There we go. Now, let's crop it. I don't need this bottom part. I just need the reflection in the water. So I'm going to crop it down to an 8:10 crop. And then shift it up. Notice how the rule of thirds is not strictly adhered to here, but that's okay. There you go. I also don't like this. This is very distracting, so I'll have to cope with that. So let's move this back up just a little bit. There we go. Alright, so, contrast. Let's squeeze everything a little bit towards the center. See, if you increase the contrast, it shoves everything out towards the edges. But if you decrease the contrast, it pushes everything in towards the middle. So this is what I want. It looks horrible right now, but don't worry, that will change. Let's boost the clarity. And and I got an email from B&H because, yeah, I need to spend more money there. And let's boost up the vibrance just a hair, just right there. Okay, so this photo looks absolutely terrible right now, but what we're going to do is we're going to set it in to Photoshop to do something I absolutely love doing in Photoshop. I don't use Photoshop for much. I really should learn how to use Photoshop more. But what it really is excellent for is the content-aware heel. So, I don't want this, so let's get rid of that. Now it's gone. I don't want this, let's get rid of that. Gone. And gone. And now I have nothing on the edges distracting my sky. Okay, we'll save that. And we'll quit, and that'll bring us back into Lightroom. Look at that. Okay, so this photo still looks like absolute crap. So what we're going to do is we're going to send it into Color Efex. Again, my usual go-to. Come on, open it up. There we go. Alright, so now what we're going to do is, let's see, dramatic skies. That is way, way, way over the top. So let's back that off and go into secret sauce. Still a little over the top. I'm not crazy about the coloring. There should be a lot more pink in here. And there's not. The sensor really blew the heck out of the pink. And that's not good. We have to make do with what we've got. Glamour Glow. Alright, so we'll lower that a bit. Now let's get that blur down just a hair. Still not thrilled with the color balance on this thing. So, let's see, correct color cast. That brings us a little closer to where we need to be for the color to be balanced. I'm still not crazy about this, though. Well, we can certainly do... Oh, look at that. I got a great big blob right here in my shot. Man, oh man, oh man. What am I going to do about that? Well, I'll show you what I'm going to do about that. Can't stand that, getting the lens flare in my shot. Some people like to include it in their shot. It drives me absolutely bonkers to have this stupid thing in my shot. There it is, right there. See how aggravating that is? I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up in Viveza. Yes, another one of those lovely NIK programs that was been passed around from company to company. Alright, let's zoom in. Okay, I'm going to add a control point. Throw it right in the center of that. I'm going to drop the radius down so it's just slightly wider than that. I'm going to bring the brightness down. And I'm going to bring the saturation down. And finally, I'm going to bring the red channel all the way down. Ah, look at that. Now it's a purple. Now it's a green splotch. All right, let's bring the red channel back up again until it's a little bit more balanced. Okay. Well, it's not perfect, but it's a darn sight better than it was. A darn sight better than it was. Let's add another control point. And let's make it really, really small. Bring the brightness up just a hair. Let's make it a little smaller. And now it's a little bit more balanced. So now we're going to save that and go back into Lightroom. Look at that. Lens flare is gone. Alright. With lens flare, after Viveza. With lens flare, after Viveza. Viveza is really good for knocking down those lens flares, but I'm still not crazy about that sky. So, let's put in a mask. Let's see, I just want to mask out the sky. So let's mask out the sky. There we go. Let's hope I don't have this the other way around. What tint? There we go. That's tinted more the way I want it. Let's bring the exposure. Nope, that's not getting it done. Let's zero that back out again. Oh, I don't want a color. There. Good. That's a little bit better. Let's move this a little higher. Get it off the mountain. There we go. Wow, look at that. Purple Mountain's Majesty. And done. Still not great. Still not great. Let's take a look at the white balance. My color temperature. Let's cool it off just a hair. Alright, last step. Let's go into Topaz Impression. My kitty's back on my chest again. She just loves it there. She could spend all day there. Okay, this is going to be one of those times where it loads really super slow. So, hey, ooh, lower back, lower back, lower back. There we go. So whenever I'm up here working in the studio, this is essentially what she's doing. I think she wants down. Whoop, there she goes. Alright, and you know what? It's still loading the presets. This is just maddening. So how are you this morning? What's new in your life? Everything going okay? Getting out there, getting some shots? It's kind of a dreary day, but it looks like it might clear up. I'm going to go out a little bit later on. See what I can see. I saw another mountain. I saw another mountain. I saw another mountain. And then I climbed over them. Because that's what you do. You know? You want to get the shot, you got to climb the mountain. Wow, this is slow. This is maddeningly slow. I am an old iMac. I load my previews slow. Last preview has just loaded up. That didn't take too long. All right, let's get you back on there. And then swivel, swivel, swivel. There we are. Let's lock that down. Okay. So, let's see which effect is going to be good. This is my original preset right here, which it will load up sometime before I die. Come on. Ooh, I just burped. Mango. Mango burp's not good. Okay. Meh. Narrow brush, high contrast. Let's see. Why is it so slow? Why is it so slow? That's better. That's much better. Now I'm going to apply my watercolor effect darker and just compare the two to see what works. Oh, I got an email from Office Depot that I can delete. Yay! And no, for this shot I think narrow brush high contrast works better. So let's get that up here and wait the interminable time for it to load up. There we go. And then set my opacity for 34%, thus retaining most of the detail in the image. I can work with that. I can work with that. Okay, so let's save that. Apply changes. As you can see, I'm not exactly the editing whiz here. It's basically, I wonder what will work with this shot. One of these days I have got to figure out how to use Photoshop properly. Okay, I can use that shot. That shot will work. So let's sharpen this thing up. Oh, I just got a text from a friend of mine, which I will answer after I sharpen and export. So radius all the way down, detail all the way up. And there's virtually no noise this time. Why? Because I shot at base ISO 200. That's why. You know, the infrared shots I shot at ISO 1600. These I shot at 200. So even though I really crank the heck out of them, there's almost no noise in the sky at all. So a little bit more unsharp mask. That's about where I want it. Sharpen it. And then throw my little light vignette on it. Little light vignette. Ooh, ooh. All right, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is that. So we're going to export this thing. And we are going to call this there we go. Wallkill Creek. Okay, Mohonk Sunset. Not a very original shot, but one that will help me to find it later. And that is the final shot. Not bad. Not bad. All right, well, thank you for seeing me through this process, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me through this long, arduous adventure here, and I hope to see you next time. Until then, get out there and shoot.
Wow.